launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys blasting off with KBL and Rachel about the Kusama Kingdom. We had an episode on their project about a month and a half ago. I'm very, very happy to have them in here to talk about what's become one of the most popular projects in .sama. Rachel, KBL, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. Absolute honor to be here. Big fan of the show.
Thank you for having us.
You guys started the project, or at least minted, just 9 months ago. I'm curious about, in October, KBL, what was the original idea here behind the project? How'd you get the ball rolling and get this all going?
Yeah, 9 months ago, it's pretty crazy. I can't remember my life before the Kings and Queens, and yet 9 months just isn't really that long. And back in October, I mean, where this started was just an idea that I had when I was on holiday, when I saw a picture of a king at this random church in Kyrgyzstan. And I'd obviously was in the .sama eco space, had seen NFTs that started coming up on my radar. And I remember going into that holiday kind of thinking like, I could definitely do an NFT. And then I saw this picture. And that same evening, I messaged Rachel, she's my cousin, and she's a graphic designer. And I was like, can you just try and draw me a king, like similar to this one? And obviously like talk through NFTs a bit. And then from that text, within 2 weeks, we launched it. So like it wasn't much planning. But we went into it just wanting to, one, deliver like good art, creative art, not like a copy and paste of anything you see on Ethereum, which obviously Rachel is amazing at doing week in, week out. And also just create a community and just create a place where people can come, hang out. Like people throughout life, right, want to feel part of something, whether that's supporting a football team, being part of a gym or a social club. And bringing that experience online, I think, was a massive driver, because there's a lot of people in the crypto space and the NFT space who probably can't relate that much to some of their in real life friends, because naturally not everyone in your in real life is into it. And often at times you're the only one who's into it. So trying to create that environment for people online was a big driver. And that's what kind of started it. And from that, it's just gone on and on and on.
Were there any collections? Because you said you just kind of had NFTs on your radar and this idea of community building. Were there any other collections that kind of inspired you or spurred your imagination at that time?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones is obviously was like the Bored Ape model of the clubs and the in real life stuff. And then obviously I was a part of the Chaos DAO, and then like the apes and stuff. That was a great project. And then obviously stuff like seeing Yumi's cats and the Substronauts and all that sort of stuff just kind of made this cocktail for me in the early days of thinking through stuff.
Yeah. But
at the same time, I also found on Singular as an investor, when I was trying to invest in them, I found it very hard. There was no projects with seemingly rigid release structures. Just you'd find these collections that said like 10,000 or 1,000 and then minted like 10 or 12. And I'm like, well, when the rest of them coming? Like, it was very hard and there wasn't that much information. So I wanted to really create a transparent project where you could see like, this is how many kings are coming each week. And these are the rarities clearly defined. So it was kind of a mix of, I guess, seeing projects that were good, but also finding it really hard to invest in them as well, because like some of them were just structured, in my opinion, just not that well.
Okay, that's interesting. Rachel, so your cousin reaches out. Did you guys have like a lot of contact before this? See each other just like on holidays? What was that like?
Yeah, we probably hadn't spoken in pretty long time when he messages me out of the blue with this photo from Kyrgyzstan. So that was kind of a fun surprise. We would see each other occasionally at family holidays, but I was actually living in the States and KBL's in the UK, so wasn't a lot of opportunity to hang out, but I was all for it. I was just being a stay-at-home mom in Alabama at that point, so I thought this could make things a little spicier, so let's go for it.
That's incredible. And did you have NFTs on your radar from before that? What did you think he was talking about?
Yeah, I'd heard of them in just what you might pick up on the news from time to time. I didn't really know much about them, and I didn't really understand why people bought them or what the utility behind them could be. It was just a very basic understanding of what it meant, basically. So it was really cool for me to dive into that space and learn how much more there was to it than a lot of people realize, just if their only exposure has been from what they see on the news.
I'm looking at the very first king right now with the red jacket and the yellow canary. What inspired this now very iconic image? And what was the back and forth like with KBL before you guys decided that you had a winner?
The photo from Kyrgyzstan was the basic principle. It was a king, but a more realistic painting like you might expect to see in a church. But it was holding two items, a scroll and something else. And so KBL's idea was that we could change up what those two items were. And then also I had to cartoonify it, make it fit into the space that is NFTs and make it work as a profile picture. So I kind of took that and made something that was simpler and a more striking design, took out a lot of the detail, and something that could be changed and adapted while still being recognizable.
But I think there was only like 3 drafts back and forth. Hence why we launched so quickly. I think something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, a few sketches and then just a few tweaks on the final design.
Amazing. And is this similar to your style in other artwork that you do or for other jobs?
Yeah, the style is similar to what I've done before. I've worked in the animation industry, so there's always this cartoony style that you're going for. I was working in like children's animation, so that is where my experience is. And a lot of NFTs were kind of trying to create that sort of style, which is appealing to people.
Yeah.
That's why it's so popular in movies. So yeah, that's where my background is. So this was a good one for me to get into.
They're absolutely gorgeous. You guys have had an interesting rollout. I think you were touching on it a little bit there. What can you tell us about your strategy of rolling out since the beginning and how that's fared for you?
Yeah, I think the strategy is interesting in Kusama, right? In general, you kind of see these gradual mints, and you kind of have to because the singular platform itself isn't really designed for mass minting. So you're kind of put in that situation. So then it's kind of like, how do you make the best of this? And it's a case of like knowing your market and knowing the people within the ecosystem, right? And the fact that there's only 5,000 or so active wallets on Singular. If you're aiming for a 10,000 piece collection, like some of the ones you've seen, like you've got to get every single person to buy 2 of them or more.
Yeah.
It's not that realistic. So from a size perspective of the collection, it was like, right, we need to go small. And we threw around some numbers like 50, then it was 100, and then we did 100, and then we were like, we'll do 10 legendary ones on top, and then we just randomly get to 110. And then in terms of rolling them out, it was just a case of, at the start, we kind of just wanted to have that set defined period, which ended up being 20 weeks. Originally, we thought it'd be 10, but it was just like that constant amount of supply and stuff. It just worked better. Once we got through the 10 legendary, the normal weeks, we just started spacing them out a bit more. And we think it worked well because in the normal ETH world or Solana world, you have this one hit mint and you have to like an adrenaline hit, and you have to build it all up to this point, and the adrenaline and the marketing and everything to this one point, and it's great, and everyone's like, and then it can kind of a lot of the times maybe either be an anticlimax or a rug risk, because as a founder of the project, right, you've had your payday, like you've got in, you've got out, you've sold it. Where is your incentives then to deliver further value? And that's something that we really, really want to focus on, is even after the kings and queens, is how we are delivering value. And hence why we buy them ourselves, right? We didn't give ourselves a king or queen for free. I had to buy one on the secondary. Rachel has to buy the queen on the secondary, because we want skin in the game and we want to show that we are here for the long term and we are a part of the community. And we thought that worked well, that slow release of the kings, because it forces you to build and innovate throughout the collection and add utility over time, because we're still minting them for 20 weeks rather than just for one day.
When did you guys realize that you had a hit on your hands?
The first Saturday that we did those first 4 kings, like we were both just like pretty blown away, to be honest, because we auctioned them. So we were going to list them. I literally made like a little spreadsheet. I probably still got it somewhere of like where we think we'll sell them for. And I was like, we could list them for maybe like $50 to $100.
Oh,
and then I was like, we would like agree. We've just got to auction these and let the market decide. Like, we don't know like how to price these things. So then we did it. And then the first 4 went for like $1,300 each. And we were just like, holy moly, what has just happened? And that was like the best feeling ever. And I'm sure like Rachel can go into like, she's selling her art. It's not even my art, right?
Yeah.
But, like, to sell your art for that.
Yeah. Tell us about that, Rachel. How does that feel?
It was crazy. We were on a trip to Savannah in Georgia. I remember it very vividly that weekend. And we were walking along the river with some friends. And I'm getting these messages of KBL, like of each new bid, and we're just losing our minds on this pier. Like we can't believe, we had no idea. And they were going for like about 3 KSM, which KSM was about what, 350 at that point?
The glory days.
Yeah, just totally beyond any of our wildest expectations. It's an amazing feeling. I've never thought that I could sell a piece of art for that kind of amount of money. So it was, feels pretty amazing to see that happening.
And all you guys have done since this initial mint is build in this utility. I'm curious about what the utility was like for those initial holders and kind of the progression of utility.
I think we launched at a pretty good sweet spot in terms of the NFTs. Like, it was a point where like Chaos DAO Apes, I think, were maybe going for like 40 or around then. I can't remember exactly. So yeah, I think obviously because ours was a similar size collection, I think people kind of saw that. And obviously the Chaos DAO Apes were going for like under 1 KSM at one point, and then for 40. I think we managed to catch the tail end of that, and people just naturally expected it to follow. That was probably one reason. And the utility at the start was simply just access to the Great Hall and this allure that we created around the Discord. And obviously it started as one channel of being the Great Hall, and now it's probably over 40 channels. And it all comes down to those first 4 people that joined, right, and helped, because they were just such active people within the community. They bought into it. Those people become your best marketers. Like me going into your DM saying, "Oh, you should buy one of these kings I've made," like has no value to anyone. But someone
negative value.
Actually. Yeah, exactly. Negative value. But if someone who just bought one is like, "Man, I just got in, you want to come in," then that's suddenly valuable as marketing. So it becomes out of our hands, and you rely on your community. So from that perspective, it was just an incredible group that came in at the start and just bought into it. And very soon after we started minting, like one of the things I'd always been kind of thinking about was being able to offer retail investors like deals, like throughout the whole bull market. I would see like the people on YouTube getting into VC deals and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, how do I get into one? And I got into one just before, I think maybe like 2 weeks before launching the Kings, just randomly. And I was like, look, this is something that everyone needs to be able to do. So being able to decentralize this would be amazing. But me, KBL, going up to a project and being like, "Hi, can I get in your private round?" They're like, absolutely not. But if I had a brand behind me with a community that they can have to bootstrap, then it suddenly becomes an interesting conversation for them. So that like suddenly like light bulb moment, it was like, well, okay, if we create the Kusama Kings, now Kusama Kingdom brand, and try and turn that into like a decentralized VC shop where we can offer project value. And we partner with some great projects now like Iuna, where we can do AMAs with them. We can raise the capital collectively as a group and enter these rounds and offer value to projects. Then suddenly that's some real financial utility that we can offer holders.
And you have some experience in the traditional finance space, right? That's where you've spent a lot of your time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. When we started the Kings, I was at Goldman. So yeah, I have a traditional finance background. And since then, I've now moved into the Web3 space. I now work full-time at a Web3 fund. So it's just that natural transition, which offers synergies for the holders of the NFTs and the stuff we're trying to do there in line with like the fund work at in real life.
Amazing. So this growth from one Discord channel to now over 40, how did the growth of that community surprise you? Did you expect people to step up and take leadership roles, or how did that develop?
It was just so natural. Like there's not one point I could be like, oh, we went from like one channel to 40. It was just like maybe like someone would just be like, oh, can we have a channel for this? And we'd add it. And someone would be like, can we have a channel for that? And we'd add it. And it was just such a gradual, natural thing. Yeah. And now you look at it and we're in there, it's just like, oh, this is just the normal. It's always been like this, but there's some great screenshots that people have of like back in the day of like the first room, and it's just like the Great Hall, and it's just like 4 of us in there, one channel. And like I said before, in terms of like leadership, it just people just bought into it and just became a part of the project. The way I genuinely see it is it's like almost like a company, and everyone who holds the NFT is a shareholder equally in the company. I guess that's kind of like a DAO structure. So within that, everyone buys into it, and we have a duty as the creators to deliver value back to them. But it's just a collective, really. It's just been a really great thing to watch grow, to be honest.
Well, you guys have done a great job delivering value. The Kusama King's floor right now is 99 KSM. The Queen's sitting at 62. You guys have grown your community with this new collection, the Queens. And Rachel, I just want to say that I love the Kings, but the Queens are absolutely gorgeous. I'm curious about like how your art has grown over the last 9 months and how your process has changed.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, well, the Queens gave me this great opportunity to restart the way that I laid out the base file for these things. And as you're going through the Kings, because I was just drawing them week by week, by the end, I'm like, oh, I wish I could change this thing. But, the design is set in stone at that point. So it was exciting to have a blank slate again and think, okay, let's really nail this design. And it had to match. They had to still look like a pair, but I wanted to just up the quality as much as I could because just naturally I'd gone to drawing hardly at all because I had a very young baby. I didn't really have the time to drawing every day once things were released. So just by doing that, my skills just naturally improved. And I think we can see that in the quality of the art in the Queens and the babies. And it's been really great to see that development because having children meant that I really didn't get to draw as much as I used to. And so my skills just kind of stagnated or got worse even just from out of practice. So now I get to draw every day. And I love the most creative designs like the legendaries and the ultra rares because I really get to push the designs on those and think of some really cool ideas. And I love to see people's reaction to them as well because I get some really great comments off people and it feels really great to see that sort of stuff about something that you made.
I don't know what it is. Something about the characterization. It really seems like the Queens run the show. Just the look in their eyes somehow. So, okay, we have the Queens and then we have the babies as well. What can you tell us about how the babies fit in here and also how they come about?
So the babies, basically, if you have a king and a queen, then you have a royal family, and that's like an extra tag on the Discord, and that allows you to enter the chapel where you can claim a wedding ring. And then if you want to burn the wedding ring between a king or a queen, then Rachel will do you the custom baby. There's only 50 of those. And there's quite an interesting dynamic going on now where people are buying the rings and holding them and not burning them. There's 10 rings left, or no, maybe 9 rings left. But there's only been, I think, 21 babies minted out of 50. So there's a little speculation going on because I guess once the babies are done, then they're done. Whereas obviously we are going to continue this project for years to come. So who knows how valuable someone might want a ring and how that all fits in later down the line. And we're always people to there's such a classic phrase in this industry, but like under promise and over deliver. And we don't have any immediate plans that we're announcing in terms of like the babies or what's happening with them at the moment. It was purely done as just like a bit of a quirky thing to try and add some spice into it and try and differentiate the minting process from the queens, from the kings just a little bit more and just add that little bit of fun. And you're seeing some people come up with some great combinations for the babies and revealing them and stuff. It's just really fun. And they're obviously, we started the rings at 1 KSM and each week we mint 5 and they go up by 0.5 KSM. So yeah, it was always meant to just be a bit of fun, but who knows what those little rascals will get up to in the future.
And then you also have this frog collection. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the mystery of the cursed frog. So with the kings, we had the Legend of the Lost Swords, where if you have a king of each rarity, you get the sword of the legendary. And if you have the sword, then that becomes a 2x on the king's bounty. And so for the queens, similar concept. If you have a queen of each rarity, legendary, ultra rare, and limited, then you get to claim the frog. And I think we've had four frogs claimed so far. I mean, and those guys are just cute. Like, I wish I had a frog. But again, there's going to be some utility added to those fairly soon, which we can get into later.
So you mentioned the King's Bounty there. This is just one of the perks that holders of these NFTs have access to. What can you tell us about the King's Bounty? And then let's lay out all the utility and perks available right now.
Yeah, so the King's Bounty was something we added, I think it was maybe like the 95th King. Again, with that like classic motto of just trying to reward our earlier holders by just dropping these things later on in the collection. So the King's Bounty was a fund that we created, $110,000, and that is to be used to invest in seed rounds, private rounds, like we open up for Kings. But obviously sometimes we may get smaller tickets or we may have quicker opportunities that we need to do. So this was where we formed a council of 4 elected Kings plus me, who are basically overview the funds, 2 on 12-month term, 2 on 3-month terms. And we collectively as a group, the whole Kings, not just the council, are welcome to go approach projects. And we have like a certain like hit sheet and emails that we can send out. And through that, our kind of like reputation, our brand has started to grow. And like sometimes now projects are like, oh yeah, we've heard about you, which is great. And so we invest that with the aim to grow it over the next few years. And obviously, naturally, at the start, it's trickier, like because we're going to be investing in projects where there are like bigger lockups, investing, and all that stuff that we're all used to in this space now. But the aim to pay out the King holders a quarterly return, risk-free, like no one had to put any money into this. If it loses money, no one loses out. But with the aim to grow it and to be able to pay out quarterly to Kings if they're holding it at the end of each quarter. So that's kind of like the base mechanics of it. And that's where the legend of the lost sword comes in. If you hold one of those 10 swords, you'll get a 2x return on that payout each quarter.
Amazing. And you guys also have this King's Pad?
King's Pad, yeah. So that's essentially the place where we present the deals that we find that then any holder, king or queen, kind of rebranded to Kingdom Pad now, I guess, to be inclusive. So if you hold a king or a queen, any deal we source or any ticket we get to a project like Iuna, then any holder will have the option to say, okay, I want to put in 1,000, I want to put in 2,000, I want to put in 10,000, obviously up to the point where everyone's able to get in and it doesn't max out the ticket we're given. And then everyone collectively does it almost like a crowd fund. We raise X amount of dollars for the project. They get the support of our community on launch and in their discords and helping out and doing AMAs and all that good stuff, which they obviously love. And we now are building up such a good network in the space of like exchanges and other places where we can actually offer real value to these projects in terms of helping maybe some listings or whatever. So we only think that that's going to grow in time. And obviously, as I mentioned, working at a Web3 fund now really helps in terms of synergizing this with my job and the connections and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're really excited about where it's going to go.
So you guys have grown your community with the Queens now, and then we kind of entered, I think we could say now, a bear market. How has the dynamic in the kingdom changed, and what are you guys doing to, make it through the winter?
Yeah, I mean, like bear markets are never fun, and obviously like the KSM price is down a lot, but to be honest, like it doesn't really affect us too much. Obviously like morale's lower, everyone feels a lot more energized and a lot more hyped in bull markets, but for me, like being in crypto for 5-6 years, I know that the best opportunities come in the bear market. So you almost want it. When in the bull market, when everything's 10xing every other week, it's like, oh my God, you're like playing whack-a-mole, trying to like grab every opportunity you can. And it's stressful. Whereas you can literally, in a bear market, projects are now wanting funding, valuations are getting lower. You can kind of sharpen your skills and find really good opportunities to take your time about it. You don't have to FOMO into these things. So for us, with the vision we have and the long-term mentality, it's fine. And in terms of the NFT sales, for us, I think it's just a case now of we want to deliver back to our holders. So if someone's managing to enter the kingdom at a lower dollar value or even a lower KSM value, which we haven't really seen, but obviously dollar-wise, then that's great. Like that's great because we're providing people opportunities later to capture that upside and get on like the train that we're plowing ahead with. So it hasn't really affected me personally at all, because I just think it's going to provide us great opportunities and just strengthen our community long term.
I'd actually be curious to know what the roadmap is looking like now that you've gotten pretty far with these extra projects here. What do you guys have coming up over the next, let's say, 6 to another 9 months?
In terms of the future, so obviously at the end of the Kings, we announced the Queens and they could still access the Discord and the Great Hall. But as soon as the last Queen's minted, that'll be it. Like the doors to the Great Hall will close.
Wow. And
that's not saying we won't do another collection as a derivative of it coming off later. But in terms of the utility that comes with the Kings and the Queens, that will end. But the future is bright, I think, for the kingdom. And so obviously we have like the King's Bounty Fund, which is there to be invested collectively and provide benefits to the Kings. We want to take that to the next level. And so the natural steps for this, we think, and as I mentioned earlier, I work at a Web3 fund now. The managing partner of that fund is Rich Shorten, Shorty35. People will have seen him around.
Yeah, he's a major lurker in WAG Media.
Yeah, major lurker and managing partner of the fund I'm at called Silvermine. And from Silvermine, it has been created Lucky Friday, which some people may have heard of.
Yes.
Probably no one has really heard of, but may have seen it poking around. So through Lucky Friday, we're looking to do various things. One of the things that will be happening is it will be acquiring an equity stake in the Kusama Kingdom brand. And that's in order to like fully support and synergize the work I do at the fund and at the kingdom and really just align those incentives. And so what does that actually mean? I mean, firstly, we'll be creating a separate DeFi specific fund under the Queen's Jewels, it will be called.
Nice.
And forming a farming alliance similar to the King's Council. But this will focus purely on farming and DeFi and trying to target APY returns. So like lower risk than the King's Bounty stuff. And this will thus probably be, well, at least equal, if not higher value than the King's Bounty Fund. And if a certain APY target is hit, we'll be injecting more capital into it each quarter. And similar, that would then pay out Queens risk-free with the aim that collectively people are going out and finding these awesome farming opportunities. And in terms of like the further details on that, this will be launched, no set date yet, but after the end of the Queens, once we dot the I's and cross the T's and all that sort of stuff. And then also like in terms of the overall brand, together with like Lucky Friday and Silvermine, we'll be looking to just expand the brand into various exciting like commercial avenues over time and really just trying to build it into something bigger. And to be honest with you, the real long-term aim I see for this thing is to create the Kusama Kingdom as like an all-encompassing fund. So I want to see the day where we're bringing on limited partners and outside capital, and they're planting it with us in our fund structure that we will have created. And so investing similar to a traditional venture fund. So holders of the NFTs will take their 30%, just like a typical management fee. And now, of course, I'd love to see every holder being active in sourcing deals. And there's an extra incentive, and we give extra percentages for people who do that. This is laid out in the bounty. But you can just be passive and just get paid out. And that's the beauty. One of these NFTs is kind of just like a founding ticket to be part of this fund. And obviously, this comes with tons of legal, tax, regulatory items that need to be sorted out. But we kind of covered a lot of them with the bounty. But I used to be an accountant, and we at Silvermine have lawyers and accountants that are going to help forge this path. So yeah, that's kind of the long-term vision, and hence why we have such a long-term mindset. And I get naturally people in crypto have very short-term horizons, and that's fine. And we'll still be here slogging away and trying to fulfill these goals, and people can sell the NFTs or buy them and get in. But hopefully people can just see through these steps how serious we are about it and how much we're going to just keep pushing this forward as far as we can.
So the last opportunity for people to get in on the ground floor here is to buy a queen. Maybe you could tell us quickly about how these queens are rolling out.
Yeah, so I think today, whenever this airs, we will have about maybe 15 or so left, and they'll just be getting auctioned in public on Twitter like we normally do, one by one over the course of probably, it will end around July the 22nd, which is when we have our next in real life meetup in Vegas. So it'll probably end on that Friday, and then we'll have weekend in Vegas with some of the holders and stuff. So
wow.
Yeah, then that's the ground floor, and then it will just be secondary and whatever the market decides.
Incredible. Rachel, you kind of started us off earlier in the interview here with a story about being on the pier and watching those initial sales roll in. I'm curious, just to close this out here, maybe how your life has been affected by this collection and what your hopes are for the future of NFTs and your work in them.
Yeah, my life's been totally transformed from the start of this. So I've been able to work essentially, whereas before I wasn't. And so I've, had to sort out childcare and all of that. But it's been really good for me, I think, to have something else in my life. So this is going to be much better balance. And I'm really enjoying learning about something new. I had no experience with cryptocurrency, and now I know so much, and people are always coming up to me and asking about what it is I do, and like, how do I buy an NFT and stuff like that. And it's a pretty exciting thing to be in, because people hear about this stuff, but they don't really understand it. And it's great to be a part of it. And now I own NFTs myself, not just queens, but I did recently get a queen, the kitty queen, which is the one that I really wanted, because I'm definitely a cat lady. That was definitely the one for me. And it's also really exciting to go to these real world meetups, which is another utility to owning a king or a queen. I've only been able to, there's only been two. but I've been to one of them in Amsterdam. And it was really great to meet people in person, because it's one thing to chat in a Discord, but to actually meet these like-minded people in real life, I think is really special. And so we're going to continue those meetups going forward. We've got Vegas, as KBL said, and New York later in the year, and we'll continue those into the next year as well. And they've all been a really big success as well. So that's been a very exciting thing to get involved in, and meeting lots of great new people. Yeah, I think things are going really well.
That sounds extremely exciting. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing that story with us, and also the amazing artwork to bring this community together. KBL, is there anything you want to say to leave our audience with?
I just really appreciate the time you've taken to speak to us. We love sharing our story and just being open about what's coming. And we're just so grateful to everyone who's ever been a part of it, ever bought into it, and continues to support us. And we just hope we can continue to deliver value back to everyone and just complete the vision that we were setting out to do.
Well, I have no doubt about you guys. I'm very excited to see how it keeps going. And thank you so much for building this valuable community in our ecosystem. I think it sounds like it's all gone according to plan and even better. So yeah, I thank you very much for coming on, and I hope we get to hear from you guys very soon.
Cheers, Jake.
Thank you.